Hey, good afternoon to you. It is now 3:06 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, KT MacFarland will be with us, former Deputy National Security Advisor to President Trump. We've got a lot to talk about with her as President Trump has a big new plan for Gaza. KT will explain what it all means. Josh Hammer joins us at 4 o'clock. We talked to him about some of this foreign policy stuff. Also, what is USAID up to? And why are they losing all that money now that they've been spending? Josh will react to that. Andrew Kerr, speaking of money, Andrew Kerr over at the Washington Free Beacon will help us take a closer look at the news outlets who have been taking in millions upon millions of dollars from you, the American taxpayer. Now, all of a sudden, poof, that money going away, thankfully. And then Lauren Miller is here at 5 o'clock. She is a professional golfer. She was in attendance today as President Trump signed an executive order banning men from women's sports. We'll discuss. It's all ahead. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Let me start with the big news of the last 24 hours, and that is President Trump making an announcement about a change of policy about how we are going to resolve all of the chaos in the Middle East, and specifically Hamas-controlled Gaza. What's going to change there? Here's President Trump saying that this has been a long run of misery.
I also strongly believe that the Gaza Strip, which has been a symbol of death and destruction for so many decades and so bad for the people anywhere near it, and especially those who live there, and frankly, who's been really very unlucky. It's been very unlucky. It's been an unlucky place for a long time. Being in its presence just has not been good, and it should not go through a process of rebuilding and occupation by the same people that have really stood there and fought for it and lived there and died there and lived a miserable existence there.
It's a hellscape, says President Trump, explaining that this is just not a good place to be. And so now it's time for the big dog to step in and take over.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
Okay, so a big announcement from the President of the United States. And if you're like me, your mind is probably racing in a million directions when you hear this. And one of those directions is, let's admit it, well, wait a second. That sounds like a big exertion of American resources to include American troops. What is the likeliness that this doesn't bring about peace, but instead brings us closer to war? That concern ever present as we deal with the Middle East and the long-running issue of trying to bring about a peace there. How do we do this in an appropriate fashion? Now, I'll get to some of the developments that we've had throughout the last 24 hours. But first and foremost, President Trump was saying that in the process of trying to rebuild Gaza, we need to find a place for the people who live there to go. You can't rebuild that hellscape if there are people in the way. They've got to go somewhere during that process.
Instead, we should go to other countries of interest with humanitarian hearts, and there are many of them that want to do this, and build various domains that will ultimately be occupied by the 1.8 million Palestinians living in Gaza, ending the death and destruction and, frankly, bad luck. This can be paid for by neighboring countries of great wealth. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 12. It could be numerous sites, or it could be one large site. But the people will be able to live in comfort and peace.
All right, so find a place for everybody to live. That's the goal. So President Trump completed his remarks yesterday, again, standing alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is visiting the United States right now, visited with the president yesterday, visited with the Secretary of Defense today. During the question and answer phase, CNN's Caitlin Collins asking President Trump about where do all the people go and who is going to live in Gaza once this reconstruction is complete.
Just to follow up on what you were saying about the Gazans leaving Gaza, going to other countries, one, where exactly are you suggesting that they should go? And two, are you saying they should return after it's rebuilt? And if not, who do you envision living there?
I envision a world, people living there, the world's people. I think you'll make that into an international, unbelievable place. I think the potential in the Gaza Strip is unbelievable. And I think the entire world, representatives from all over the world will be there, and they'll live there. Palestinians also.
Palestinians also. In other words, people who live in Gaza now will be able to return, but the place needs to be fixed up dramatically. President Trump was also asked, are you planning on sending troops? He didn't remove that from the conversation.
And Mr. President, given what you've said about Gaza, did the U.S. send troops to help secure the security vacuum?
So Saudi Arabia is going to be very helpful, and they have been very helpful. They want peace in the Middle East. It's very simple. We know their leader and their leaders very well. They're wonderful people, and they want peace in the Middle East. As far as Gaza is concerned, we'll do what is necessary. If it's necessary, we'll do that. We're going to take over that peace, and we're going to develop it, create thousands and thousands of jobs, and it'll be something that the entire Middle East can be very proud of.
Okay. So the president, once again, this is his custom, by the way. He never removes any option from the table, at least rhetorically. He never gives anybody the impression that something is off the table. This is quite obviously a very public negotiation about how we can resolve this war. Mike Walz, who is one of the president's top advisors, today on CBS explained some of this.
You know, everybody's heart breaks for the Palestinian people across the region, and rightly so, but he's not seeing any realistic solutions on how those miles and miles and miles of debris are going to be cleared, how those, essentially unexploded bombs are going to be removed, how these people are physically going to live. For the at least a decade, if not longer, it's going to take to do this. So the fact that nobody has a realistic solution, and he puts some very bold, fresh, new ideas out on the table, I don't think should be criticized in any way. I think it's going to bring the entire region to come with their own solutions.
Okay, so now you're seeing what this looks like. This is a bargaining position. President Trump comes out and goes, all right, fine. You don't want to fix it up? You don't want to resolve this? The entire region doesn't want to resolve this? Fine, I'll come flying in like a 10,000-pound gorilla, and I'm going to take over Gaza entirely. How about that? How about none of you get a say? I take over the whole process. You think the region wants that? No. They don't want the United States. They don't want U.S. territory being set up right there in the Middle East. They don't want that. So what kind of pressure does this place on Arab states? On the Iranians? On Gaza? On Hamas? You think, does Israel want Gaza to be controlled by the United States? No, Israel's preference would probably be for Israel to control Gaza. I don't think anybody really, in the end, wants the United States to establish U.S. territory there. It's U.S. territory now. It's ours. No. And so Trump is forcing everybody to the table now. And today, Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, added quite a bit of context to all of this. If you were listening, you could hear it in the president's remarks. She reiterated a lot of what the president had to say yesterday. Here's how that went, just a short while ago.
On Gaza, the president has spent basically his entire public career criticizing foreign entanglements, nation building, sending American troops to fight abroad, particularly in the Middle East. This plan seems like it could ultimately involve all of those things. Can you explain this reversal and how building and owning Gaza squares with America First foreign policy?
I would reject the premise of your question that this forces the United States to be entangled in conflicts abroad. The president has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza. He has also said that the United States is not going to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza. His administration is going to work with our partners in the region to reconstruct this region.
Okay, all right, so a little more detail, and there she is. She didn't say he took troops off the table. It's just that he hasn't committed to sending them. That's the distinction she's making.
He did not rule out American troops in Gaza last night. Are you doing that now?
I am saying that the president has not committed to that just yet. He has not made that commitment, and you know that.
He has not made that commitment. And you know that. Also, what about people who live in Gaza right now?
He spoke with the King of Bahrain. He spoke with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, and he has made it very clear. He's been very vocal that he expects our partners in the region, particularly Egypt and Jordan, to accept Palestinian refugees temporarily so that we can rebuild their home.
Temporarily so we can rebuild their home. There's a fellow called David Friedman. He was the U.S. ambassador to Israel when President Trump was in office the first term, 2017 to 2021. He's written a post on X today reacting to all of this, and it's pretty interesting. He writes this: a few thoughts on President Trump's Gaza plan after the benefit of a little sleep. Number one, those screaming about a forced evacuation obviously don't understand the landscape. I know, says David, from many direct conversations that most people in Gaza wanted to leave even before October 7th, but nobody would take them in. Now the issue is both amplified and academic. There simply is no physical option to remain in Gaza. Two, assuming civilians agree to leave, but Hamas sympathizers and terrorists do not, Hamas will be deprived of its most strategic weapon, human shields. And its eradication will be accelerated. This seems like a very important point, doesn't it? If President Trump provides an out for genuine civilians in Gaza to be able to escape the hell in which they live, who does that leave behind? Hamas. It leaves behind terrorists. So David pointing out that makes them easy pickings. Now they don't have the human shields to hold in front of them. Number three, the potential for Gaza is off the charts. It's 25 miles of sunset-facing Mediterranean beachfront. Assuming an average of 1,000 feet of frontage per project, that would permit 132 major multi-$100 million developments along the beach between construction, management, and service jobs. That's enough economic horsepower to employ hundreds of thousands of people. It sounds like a perfect investment for America's new sovereign wealth fund. That's what President Trump announced this week in order to enrich our country. David says it would make the U.S. rich and the Middle East safe. And four, Hamas's defeat as a so-called ideology comes when everyone sees how much better life is after it loses its territory. New Gaza will be a perpetual monument to the defeat of radical Islamism. What a day for America and Israel. All right, so there's some of the reactions. We're going to talk in a few minutes here with KT MacFarland. She's always so good on these issues, always has a very sober take on what's actually happening and how President Trump operates. Because, again, I get it. I'm right there with you. The last thing you want to hear is, are we creating unnecessary invitations for American troops to be at war? We don't want that. We don't want that. If we're going to send our men to go and fight, we want to do that for causes that are directly in America's interests. And we should be very careful. We should guard zealously against entanglements that will lead them into conflict and the loss of more blood, the loss of more American lives. But at the same time, is there an advantage to be derived here? Can a peace be established? Is President Trump making a good opening offer that's going to provoke people to come to the table to actually settle the conflict rather than exacerbate it? Trump's one of those rare people in public life who has earned the benefit of the doubt. So many have sold you out. Trump has not fit into that category. Trump has been the opposite of that, which is why he's been rewarded yet again with another go in the Oval Office. So we'll talk to KT MacFarland, again, moments away, just a few minutes away, and get her take on what she is seeing from her perspective as someone who knows Donald Trump, the way that he acts, the way that he handles these international negotiations, and how this could all redound to our benefit. We'll talk to KT. But Secretary of State Marco Rubio speaking on President Trump's big Gaza announcement yesterday.
What President Trump said yesterday is an acknowledgement of the following. Gaza has been severely damaged. If you look at the aerial imagery, you see what's happening. The billions of dollars that are going to be required for reconstruction are enormous. Some areas have been rendered unlivable now and for the foreseeable future. And so what President Trump announced yesterday is the offer, the willingness of the United States to become responsible for the reconstruction of that area. And while you are rebuilding, while you're clearing debris, by the way, there are unexploded munitions. There are all kinds of Hamas weaponry still buried underground. For people to be able to live in a place safely, all of that has to be removed. It's an enormous undertaking. And the only thing President Trump has done very generously, in my view, is offer the United States willingness to step in, clear the debris, clean the place up from all the destruction that's on the ground, clean it up of all these unexploded munitions. And in the meantime, the people living there will not be able, the people who call that home will not be able to live there while you have crews coming in and removing debris, while you have munitions being removed, etc. That's the offer that he's made. It's actually, he made a similar, obviously we didn't have a conflict at the time, but when he, in his first term, he offered a $50 billion plan to help Palestinians, which was rejected by the PA and obviously others. So in the interim, obviously, people are going to have to live somewhere while you're rebuilding it. It is akin to a natural disaster. So what he's very generously has offered is the ability of the United States to go in and help with debris removal, help with munitions removal, help with reconstruction, the rebuilding of homes and businesses and things of this nature, so that then people can move back in. But in the
all we ask is just a healthy chunk of the ownership stake and all the beachfront property, and we'll fix everything up. So we'll see. President Trump was in an interesting mood yesterday. He seemed to be in a very relaxed mood, despite the fact that he's discussing peace in the Middle East. Here's some random reporter saying, hey, Israel wants you to strike Iran. And Trump says, you don't even know what Israel wants.
But the Prime Minister, Mr. President, the Prime Minister wants you to strike Iran. That's what he wants.
You don't know what he wants. What do you know about anything? Go ahead.
You don't know what he wants. What do you know about anything? And then you see the woman, the Afghan woman, trying to ask a question, and Trump didn't understand a word she said.
Afghan suffered woman. Any comment about Afghanistan? What's your future plan for Afghan people, especially Afghanistan?
I have a little hard time understanding you. Where are you from? Oh. Actually, it's a beautiful voice and a beautiful accent. The only problem is I can't understand a word you're saying. But I just say this, good luck, live in peace. Go ahead, please.
You have a beautiful voice, a beautiful accent. Only problem is I can't understand a word you're saying. Well, that was a nice way to let her down. Coming up, KT MacFarland explains everything we heard yesterday. She's got a beautiful voice. She'll talk to us in a moment. Hey, good afternoon to you. 336 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, Josh Hammer joins us at 4 o'clock. We'll talk about the left freaking out that we've discovered their piggy bank hidden underneath the mattress. They're so upset that we found it. And then Andrew Kerr joins us at 4:30. That piggy bank has been paying off huge media organizations to the tune of millions of your dollars. Andrew will explain what we've learned today. And then Lauren Miller from the Independent Women's Forum, professional golfer, will be with us. She's with President Trump today as he signs an executive order banning men from women's sports. It's crazy that it takes an EO to do it. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
A big announcement on a big day from President Trump, as he had previously announced that they were restoring all of those sanctions against Iran that Joe Biden had gotten rid of, which, of course, made the terror problem so much worse. President Trump also saying right there, the United States is prepared to take over the Gaza Strip. What does it all mean? Let's ask KT MacFarland. She's a former Deputy National Security Advisor to President Trump and the author of Revolution, Trump, Washington, and We the People. KT, as always, nice to speak with you today.
Well, it's great to be with you. Thank you.
Okay, this a big announcement, the one that causes everyone to stagger backwards, going, whoa, 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 what is this? And obviously, I was talking about this in the last half hour, KT. Your spidey senses go up because you're on guard for anywhere where American troops might have to get involved. What do you make of the president's announcement? What does it mean to you, having studied him so closely?
The thing about Donald Trump is that the reaction to some of his out-of-the-box, off-the-cuff proposals is as follows. First, he says something totally out of the box, and people say, oh, that's crazy. And then people think about it for a while, and then by the time they thought about it, maybe it's not that bad an idea. And then they finally conclude, hey, that's actually a brilliant idea. I mean, look at Greenland, for example. When he said we want to buy Greenland, everyone's, oh, that's just terrible, terrible idea. But then you think about it, oh, well, Greenland has oil. It has rare earth minerals, which we don't have a lot of. It's a strategic location because it protects North America from the Arctic and from the Atlantic. And, oh, if there's a maritime trade route that goes over the top of the North Pole, Greenland is crucial. So people then thinking, maybe that's not such a bad idea that we have some kind of a security relationship with Israel, with Greenland. But the Israel-Gaza thing, my first reaction was, oh, that's crazy. And then I thought about it. And I thought, wait a minute. There are 1.5 million Palestinians in Gaza. We have several alternatives. Israel could occupy it forever, which would be a horrible situation. You'd have constant war. Everybody could leave, which means that the Palestinians would just re-elect Hamas, and they would go at it all over again, Hamas 2.0. Mm-hmm. And I guess you could send the UN in, but the UN's pretty compromised of its relationship with Hamas and the Palestinians. So how do we think outside the box? And when President Trump says maybe we can just have them leave for a while, rebuild it, clear out the landmines, the rubble that's from city to city, build it into a modern, sort of Dubai-like resort. And then you'd have jobs for the Palestinians who came back. The ones who don't want to come back, you can relocate in the neighboring countries. And it would all of a sudden go from the world's biggest cesspool, biggest failure, to a potentially a great success. So you got to flesh out these details, Vince. But it's not so crazy as it'll initially sound.
Does an announcement like that from the President of the United States have the effect of scaring people back to the negotiating table? In other words, like this is a deeply entrenched and long-running problem that explodes in fits of terrorism by Iranian-backed proxies from time to time, including the dreadful attack of October 7th. Israel responds in kind, trying to stop these attacks from ever occurring again. And there seems to be a lot of resistance for people to even come to the negotiating table to resolve all of it, given all of the animosity that's headed in every direction. I mean, if the President of the United States says, how about this? How about I turn Gaza into U.S. territory? Does that kind of shake everybody out of their normal pattern and say, okay, wait a second, let's see if we can resolve this before that happens?
The other thing he said yes, absolutely, and you're really right to say that he likes to shake things up to get people out of their normal thinking patterns. But the other thing he said today is we're reimposing the sanctions on Iran. And what he said a couple of days before that is we're going to drill, baby, drill. We're changing American energy policy, so we're no longer having a war on American fossil fuels. We're now going to encourage them. So if you're Iran, I think the biggest problem in the Middle East, you're looking at this and saying, hey, wait a minute, my income stream is just going to be cut in half. Trump's going to make it so that I can't sell oil, and even the oil that I'll figure out how to sell, it won't be worth as much on the open market as it was. So all of a sudden, Iran, which really had been financing a lot of the terrorist activities, Hezbollah and Hamas, they're now thinking, woo, maybe we need to cut back on our budgets. Maybe we can't afford this. And so he just changes the dynamics, not just the one thing he said about Gaza. That's what's got everybody eyebrows raised.
Yep.
But it's all the other stuff around it.
Yeah, and so when Joe Biden came into office, he eased up on Iran so dramatically that it made Iran absurdly wealthy again, and to the point that they were able to fund all of these terror attacks. It seems to me that President Trump is reverting back to the plan that he had for Iran in the first term.
Yes, which was to bankrupt Iran. When President Trump took office, oil was, $130, $40 a barrel in the Obama administration. President Trump had a very oil-friendly, business-friendly policies. The price of oil, American companies produced more and more. We exported more. The price of oil fell by 2/3. So oil was about $50 a barrel. And then at that point, Russia couldn't afford to invade Ukraine. They didn't have the money. Iran couldn't afford to support its proxies to invade Israel or to war against Israel. At the end of President Trump's term, Iran was really hurting. They have very high inflation. They have a very well-educated and sophisticated population that every couple of years sort of rises up against the mullahs. Yeah. And the Iranians were very worried that they had to really feed their own people first. So they were cutting back on all of their funding for Hezbollah and Hamas. Well, President Trump leaves office, Iran almost bankrupt, almost forced to go to the negotiating table on our terms, and then President Biden comes in and, as you say, just threw them an economic lifeline. They probably got an extra $125 billion
yes.
over what they would have had if Trump had remained president.
I get the impression, just from just reading news reports on what's going on with Iran, that the Ayatollah there is very nervous about maybe the stability of his regime, but especially his own life. He's attending events on occasion, and when he goes, he's believed to be wearing bulletproof vests now. That is not the sign of a strong leader. That's one who's kind of fragile and kind of skittish right now. What do you make of the current state of play in Iran, KT?
Well, if you look back over the last 20 years of Iran, there have been various incidents over the years which have caused popular uprisings. And it's usually the middle class that's revolting, saying, our economic conditions are bad. We want more attention. We're not really buying into this kill all the Israelis, destroy all the Jews. And so the Iranian leadership has a very restive population. Also, the Iranian leadership isn't unified. There's a military leadership, the IRG, Revolutionary Guards, and that group, and then there are the mullahs, the religious leaders, and there's always a little bit of tension across the two of them. But remember what happened, what was it, 2 months ago, when Israel had all of those various series of attacks against senior Hamas and Hezbollah leaders and just really wiped them out. One of the most significant attacks was that the Israelis assassinated the senior Hamas political leader in Tehran, blocks from where all the the mullahs live.
This was inside that VIP guest house, right, where they had wired bombs many months apparently before.
Yeah, so if you're a leader in Iran, you're thinking, whoa, the Israelis somehow figured out how to kill somebody just a few blocks away who's under our protection. Maybe I will wear my bulletproof vest.
Yes. Yeah. And so then the final piece here that I want to hit with Iran and the reason why all these sanctions exist in the first place is the effort to, first of all, to settle down their terrorism, but also to prevent them from obtaining a nuclear weapon. KT, I feel like I'm like every time I read headlines about how close are they, it's always like they're days away from getting a nuclear weapon. What's the truth here? How close is Iran to having a nuclear weapon that they can actually deliver at long ranges? What can President Trump do to stop that?
The key question is what you just said, deliver at long ranges. There are three things you need to have a nuclear weapon. You need enriched uranium. We know they've done that. We know they have probably enough enriched uranium to make, who knows, maybe 4 or 5 bombs. The second thing you need is the system that makes it go boom, right? The ignition system, the blueprint. We think they've got a pretty good blueprint, maybe not the most sophisticated weapon, but they think we're probably pretty close, but we're not. That's where we're the most unsure. And then the final thing is a missile that you can put a nuclear weapon on and then shoot it off to somebody, 5,000 miles away, 400 miles away. Other countries in the past have tested nuclear weapons without the missiles. They've had the uranium, they've had the blueprint, they literally put it on the back of a truck and they deliver it, they test it, they say, see, we have nuclear weapons. If Iran wanted to do that latter, where they would say, we just want to show that we can do it, nobody knows. But it's not 3 years away. Is it 3 days away? Probably not. But it's somewhere in there. And they could also make a the thing a lot of people like me have been worried about is, it's great. Iran is so vulnerable right now. Israel's taken out their proxy militaries, their missile defense systems. Iran is quite vulnerable. And now President Trump is going to make them economically vulnerable. Are the Iranian leadership thinking, ooh, yikes, the only thing we've got left is that bomb. Should we race to get a bomb? Or will they say maybe we should race to the negotiating table? And we don't know.
I guess we'll see. There's a whole bunch of reasons to trust President Trump as he handles all of this, and I hope this is one of those areas too. I really do. KT MacFarland, thank you very, very much as always.
Thank you so much, Vince.
There she is, the great KT MacFarland, former Deputy National Security Advisor to President Trump, who's dealt with all these issues on the international stage and, of course, is very familiar with the way President Trump operates. He's busy today, as always. This has been a very short presidency. He's been very busy. Today, as we speak, he's in the midst of signing an executive order protecting women's sports from men who cheat. Right now, he's doing that. Additionally, he has an attorney general in place now, Pam Bondi, finally sworn in today by the great Justice Clarence Thomas. And Pam Bondi is wasting no time getting to work. An update on what she's up to in just a moment. President Trump finally has an attorney general in place. Pam Bondi used to be Florida's attorney general, clearing the United States Senate yesterday and being sworn in today by Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Man, what a cool thing. Here she is being sworn in today.
Do solemnly swear.
I, Pamela Bondi, do solemnly swear
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
That I take this obligation freely,
that I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion,
And that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties of the office on which I'm about to enter.
discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
We have an Attorney General Bondi. Now, she's thanked the president for giving her the honor and said, I'm not going to let you down.
Thank you, President Trump. I've known you for many, many years, and I will not let you down. I am truly honored that you have asked me to take on this role, and I will make you proud, and I will make this country proud. Thank you.
I will make you proud. I will make this country proud. Fox News has a great report today on all of the day one directives that Pam Bondi is immediately implementing at the Justice Department. That includes the fight the weaponization of justice, eliminate cartels, and lift the death penalty ban that Joe Biden and company had imposed. On the weaponization working group specifically, she is establishing this group to review the activities of every law enforcement agency over the past 4 years that politicized, quote, politicized justice. The working group's first reviews will include the prosecutions against President Trump led by former special counsel Jack Smith, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, and New York Attorney General Letitia James, according to this. I assume that they will also include big fat Fannie Willis down in Georgia in this assessment. Additionally, they are also going after sanctuary cities. Here's one of the screaming headlines from today, that Pam Bondi has directed the United States Department of Justice to cut off all federal funding to sanctuary cities. So if your city receives money from the United States Department of Justice and you are harboring illegal aliens and refusing to work with Immigration and Customs Enforcement to eject them from the country, I'm sorry, you lose your money, says Pam Bondi today, announcing that. Bondi has also directed the DOJ to identify and evaluate all funding agreements with NGOs that provide support to illegal immigrants, illegal aliens. You're done. No more NGO money for you. Also this, she is directing the litigating components of the Justice Department to investigate jurisdictions that are impeding law enforcement and directing that they be prosecuted if necessary. In other words, she is preparing to prosecute sanctuary cities across the country. Finally, somebody who believes in the rule of law, now at the top of the United States Department of Justice. More on what's happening in America next with Josh Hammer, who will talk to us as President Trump and Elon Musk and his geniuses, his young geniuses, regain control of the USAID and so much more. It's all ahead.